Avengers Campus is going through a major update right now. Avengers Infinity Defense, Stark Flight Labs. 2 new attractions coming to Avengers Campus. Soon, though, in the very near future, a new project is going to begin over there in the Hollywood backlot. Pandora, the Avatar Experience, is coming to the backlot. It's going to be a huge change to that side of the park. As it happens, we have some updates in that regard. Disney has already confirmed that they're going to be closing, obviously, Monsters, Inc., the Mike and Sully to the Rescue attraction. That dark ride is going to be closing sometime in 26. Also closing are the 2 huge studio buildings to its left and right, where there used to be that Avengers gift shop, and then where they had Flynn's Arcade, which they haven't done anything in that studio building for probably 10 years. It's been vacant for about 10 years, except for that short brief time when they did the Flynn's Arcade during Electronica. I digress. New information has come available to me, and it is my understanding that Monsters, Inc., we should be getting a date, an actual date. They've only said so far, Disney, that it's going to be closing sometime in early 26 or something to that effect. The assumption was winter. But we don't have a date. We don't have an actual date. I'm hearing we're going to be getting that date pretty soon, probably in the next week or 2 is my guess. But that, not that it's going to close in a week or 2, that we're going to get the date that it will close in a week or 2. Now, my initial expectation in that regard was that it was going to be sometime, like I said, maybe February, because I feel like they want to run it obviously at least through the holiday season. And then once the holidays are done, the attraction is up for grabs. So I thought maybe February, but now I'm getting more additional information that it could be even longer. We could be waiting until about May of 2026 before they even close Monsters, Inc., let alone start working on Pandora. And the reason for that is Avengers Infinity Defense. That project, Avengers Infinity Defense and Stark Flight Lab and the Pandora project, the Avatar Experience project, those 2 are symbiotic in a lot of ways, which we'll get into in a minute. But my understanding is that project, because Avengers is delayed. Avengers is taking a little bit longer, which is surprising considering it looks to, all outward appearances that it's hauling, that they're making tremendous progress. But there have been delays, and it could be weather related, perhaps. We've seen this before where they've had some unexpected weather and they had to shut down operations for a little while. Although this was just, well, A, it wasn't unexpected, and 2, it was just a couple days. So, I mean, maybe it's that, maybe it's not, probably not. But there are delays. It's taking them a little longer. They haven't reached their benchmarks, my guess is. So they pushed back the closure of Monsters, Inc. Not because Monsters, Inc. is not ready, not because they're not ready for Avatar or Pandora, or they're not ready to build, but because they don't want to do this one until they're done with that one. They are, they're symbiotic in that way. Now, I'm hoping that isn't an actual issue in the long term, in terms of when they finish Avengers, because with the new film, the Doomsday movie, is coming out end of next year, and you would think they'd want those things to be, coordinated, that they'd want to have that attraction open just because of the hype, because people are going to be thrilled about Avengers again. Maybe not necessarily because there's some sort of synergy between the 2 movies. I don't think there's not going to be Doomsday, features in the ride per se, but there's just going to be hype. So you would think they'd want this ready. So I don't know if this delay is going to be final with respect to when they might hope to deliver Avengers Infinity Defense. But let's get back to Monsters and Mike and Sully, because that's really what I want to talk about. We don't know yet how the Pandora project is going to be related to the transportation hub and the Eastern Gateway. They are related because they're all sort of working in the same space. This is where things get really hinky. If there's a delay for Mike and Sully to the Rescue, that would also impact the Eastern Gateway project. They need to start building the Eastern Gateway, right? But part of that project, part of the Eastern Gateway project is extending that, via the bridge, which we'll talk about that again in a minute, via the bridge that's going to connect the parking lot that they're building on the other side of Harbor Boulevard with the transportation hub. That transportation hub, where they're going to be sending that bridge and where they're going to be sending guests, is also where they're going to be building the Avatar Experience, where the Toy Story buses drop off, etc. That's going to be, in some future world, that's going to be Pandora. Will that perceived delay from possibly February out into May for the closure of Mike and Sully's To the Rescue, how will that affect the Eastern Gateway project, the transportation hub, the new entrance into the park from that side of the park? It stands to reason that it would, because you can't start building the connection between the Eastern Gateway, that parking lot across Harbor Boulevard. You can't, the connection between that and the harbor entrance, where the transportation hub is now, you can't start doing that until you're ready to demo whatever spaces they are demoing, i.e. the Toy Story drop-off area. If they're not ready to demo that, then you can't start building out in that direction. And they're not ready to demo that if they're not ready to close Monster. You can't start that demo process of the transportation hub until you close Mike and Sully's To the Rescue. It's unfortunate, by the way, I should add, that this is even necessary, but as my understanding is, and this is typical of many projects that we've seen in the past, there are multiple contractors, but they often will just shift those contractors from this job to the next job, and they just keep moving. It's a shell game. They keep moving those contracting groups around. So they want to wait until they're done. They have to wait until they're done with Avengers Infinite Defense until they can start doing. Oh my God! So they can't start working on Mike and Sully's To the Rescue, and therefore they can't start working on the Eastern Gateway, which again is unfortunate, because none of this can happen. None of Avatar can happen. None of the Disneyland Forward project can happen until the Eastern Gateway is built, because that Eastern Gateway, the parking that they're going to be using in those lots, is going to replace the parking that is being currently used at the Simba lot and the downtown Disney or Disneyland Hotel parking lots. Frustrating how interconnected all of this is. You know what? Let's talk about order of operations here as we wrap up that part of the conversation, because it's important to try to understand how these things are going to be happening and how they relate to each other. The very first thing that's going to happen, that we should look forward to, the next thing that we should look forward to while they're in the middle of building Avengers Infinite Defense. That's, we're maybe halfway through. Demo is going to begin first by the end of this year for those backstage areas for Coco. We talked about that in a previous video. There's permits filed. It looks like they're getting ready. They're moving stuff out of those buildings. It looks like they might be starting to move. So we're going to see demo first at Coco behind the Incredicoaster. Then they're going to close Mike and Sully's To the Rescue based on, the whispers that I'm hearing, sometime around May of 26. Demo won't begin on that building until at least the summer, I would guess, July, August. I'm not sure how long it's going to take them to, because the first thing they have to do, they can't just start, close the attraction and tear everything down. They're going to strip it for parts. They're going to strip Monsters Inc. for parts. And use any of those animatronics, save the ride vehicles, save some of the set pieces, whatever. Not for another attraction. I don't believe that Monsters Inc. is ever going to be put somewhere else. That attraction will be no more. Even as something else, I don't think. Well, maybe they might use the animatronics. They might recycle those animatronics for another attraction. But that, they have to do all that first, and that could take months. So I'm thinking maybe summer, and this is just speculation on my part. I'm just trying to do the mental math. Maybe summer of 26, we start seeing demo of Mike and Sully's To the Rescue and the two studio buildings to its left and right. And then they would close that side of Hollywood backlot. At that same time, once they get the go-ahead, and this is how I was talking about before, how things are symbiotic. Once they get the go-ahead to start demoing Monsters, Inc., at the same time, you'll probably see your first action at the Eastern Gateway. That means, the lot will be closed. Currently it's a cast member parking lot. They'll close that lot. We've driven by there once or twice, and you can't really see much, but it's just a giant parking lot right now, flat one. And they're going to build, a real parking lot. You'll start seeing your first action there, maybe in summer of 26. They'll close it off. The gates will go up, and you'll start seeing them tear up the concrete and, do the grading, the dirt grading and everything for the actual construction. At the same time or perhaps they will be doing simultaneously, but it's at what point, I'm not sure, while they're building the actual parking structure on the other side of Harbor, on the hotel side and on the, the restaurant side of things, the actual Harbor Boulevard, they will begin simultaneously building that bridge that connects the Eastern Gateway to the Harbor Boulevard entrance of Disneyland. We're going to get a whole new entrance, and that's going to sort of occupy, as we mentioned before, that transportation hub space and the Toy Story bus drop-off area, and that'll be, Pandora. My expectation, by the way, for the Eastern Gateway is probably 18 to 24 months. That's how long I think it'll take them to build that parking structure, 18 to 24 months. We followed them building the Pixar Palace parking structure. You guys remember that? We watched that from day one, from the, when they closed I think was it Peter Pan? Was that what they called it? The Peter Pan lot? Do you guys remember that? I think it was Peter. You could park there it was a flat parking space next to where the trams used to be, where the loading and unloading of the trams used to be. God, it's such a long time ago. You guys remember? That was such a long time ago. You could park there, walk over to the trams, take it. Anyway, we watched them from day one build that thing, and it took about 2 years for that structure. And it's a pretty good sized structure. I'm not sure how this at first I had heard the Eastern Gate was going to be the biggest one that they've ever built. They may have pared that down a little bit. I'm not sure. But I'm guessing 18 to 24. I think they're trying to fast track it, but 18 to 24 months to get the Eastern Gateway built and the bridge that connects. After they begin those projects, or nearly about the same time, is when we should see them wrapping up. And all this time, they've been building Avengers Infinite Defense, as we talked about, all those things in order of operations. While they're doing all that, they're also still building Avengers Infinite Defense, and I expect that attraction to be done, hopefully, that was the plan, end of year 2026, I think. Actually, now that I think about it, I'm not even sure. That does not seem likely. As much as they want Avengers Infinite Defense to be open at the same time as the film. The film is projected to release this time next year, December 2026. I don't think they're going to make that. I think it's more likely that they open, in 27 at some point. It's not necessary that the film and the attraction open because, the film is running for 2 or 3 months perhaps, while the attraction is forever. So, when you think about it in those terms, it's not a make or break situation that they open the attraction at the same time as the film. I think mid 27 is probably the most logical, or perhaps the most optimistic timeline, just considering where we are today and having watched them build these things before. It took them 4 or 5 years to build Cosmic Rewind. Now that's a whole nother, I don't even know how this compares, Avengers Infinite Defense, how it compares to Cosmic Rewind in terms of scale and the size of operations, etc. And there were other factors that contributed to it taking that long. Tron took forever too, multiple years. So it would be optimistic to think that they could build this thing in less than 3 years, is what I'm saying, I guess. But having said that, that's where it fits in. Avengers will be done after they will have already hopefully begun those other projects, the Eastern Gateway, Coco, etc. Coco is going to be started right away. Somebody asked if I thought they could build Coco before. Would Coco open before Avengers Infinite Defense? No, I don't think so. Coco is still going to take 2 years, and we're about 1.5 years out on Avengers, I think. No, Coco will probably take more than 2 years now that I think about it. In any case, that's the order. So once they're, all that stuff is going to be beginning at about the same time. They'll finish Avengers and then move that crew over to Avatar and start building the Avatar experience. So look for Avatar to start going, actual construction at about that time. Early 27 is my guess. It'll take that long, by the way, for them to, if they're closing, God, it would take at least that long. If they're closing Monsters Inc. in May, then it would take, like I said, a few months to gut it, to take, to move everything out. Then they have to demo the buildings. That takes months. Then they have to grade the land. That takes months. Like 5, 6, 7 months probably. And plus there's the issue with, how it relates with the transportation hub. And considering all that, I think we do have some sort of basic guess as to what the final timeline will be starting from now. Coco demo starts, we'll call it December of 26. Closing Monsters Inc., May of 26. Demo of the buildings, the Monsters Inc. buildings, maybe late summer 26. At the same time, our first action at the Eastern Gateway, summer 26. And then Avengers Infinite Defense and Stark Flight Lab completed, maybe spring or summer of 27 if we're being optimistic. And again, let me add, because I know people are fond of telling me that I don't know what I'm talking about, and it's true. I base all of these speculations, all of these assumptions on nuggets of information that I have heard. A lot of it is based on things that I'm being told by people who know more than I do. And then I just try to fill in the blanks and make assumptions after that. That's what's happening here. But I understand I could be way off on some of this stuff. We'll have to wait and see. For example, I had speculated that the Eastern Gateway project might start in February or March. And I was reminded that the Run Disney events are still going there. But I mean, that's just a temporary blip. The Run Disney events are pop up and pop down. It's not a big deal. You can put a Run Disney event in the Simba parking lot out there on Disney Way and have it gone 2 days later. So you could still start a demo process the day after, basically, or 2 days after, or whatever the Run Disney event is done. But it won't be before then, obviously. I want to hear your thoughts, you guys. Let us know what you think. Is that how does that timeline sound to you? Is that optimistic, or is that completely out of left field? Let us know in the comments below, and then we'll see you guys next time. Be safe out there. Be kind to one another. FreshBaked.